Today, I think it's a very important topic we are taking up for this seminar, that is peritoneal surface malignancies. And what I'm going to do is just briefly describe the entire sort of a process that that is involved in setting up a HIPEC program, and we'll share our experience. Basically, I think the peritoneal surface malignancies, if you see, it is one of the best examples of innovative thinking, translating complex procedures into a clinical reality. Including the innovations include the disease state perception, because peritoneal surface malignancies as a group, they were thought in a similar sort of a behavior rather than organ or system-based cancers. The treatment philosophy was also innovative, pursued by very few people in the beginning. People were laughing at them, but ultimately I think it stood the test of time. Now it has become a reality. It has also propagated the new pattern of spread, which includes the peritoneal surface spread by gravity and by implantation, which is not often discussed or new management approach tried in the field of oncology. And aggressive, innovative surgical thinking, like removal of organs like peritoneum, were never thought of before the era of peritoneal surface malignancies. And it is the best example, I would say, for the multimodality management, the best example of using multimodality for controlling cancer. The journey is quite long and tedious. If you see, there are certain case reports and few initial experiences, few centers in North America and Europe since 70s started phase 1 trials against all odds, moved on to phase 2 trials. Then we have started seeing some recognition of the treatment, acceptance, which led to randomized control trials in the 2000s. Then now we are a number of multi-center randomized control trials are being organized all over the world. The challenges in this field include, since it is a complex multimodality management, we are dealing with diverse biologies, disease spectrums, complexity of therapy, various surgical variations, intraperitoneal chemotherapy variations, nomenclatures, imaging, response assessment, morbidity, mortality, and all these are being pursued by a small group of people. That's why it took almost 3 to 4 decades just to standardize the whole process of treatment and the nomenclature and the outcomes. It's a complex, multidisciplinary therapeutic intervention, skill, capital, and resource intensive. It should be initiated as an institutional program rather than isolated surgical adventure. You should have a strong institutional backing if you want to initiate HIPEC programs. Challenges of multidisciplinary treatment, technically demanding, it has a steep learning curve, and establishment of a PSM program requires time, effort, and resources. Hospital setups, PSMs, especially for CRS HIPEC, should be treated in tertiary care hospitals with a comprehensive oncology setups. High volume centers are preferred, and we need a good supportive care, including critical care, ICU, blood bank, and rehabilitation. The teams include oncology team, surgical team, ancillary and supportive teams, and the multidisciplinary oncology team, surgical oncology, the team which leads the PSM programs, and of course, medical oncology, oncoimaging, oncopathology, palliative care are equally important in the overall success of PSM program. The surgical team, the most important component apart from the primary surgical team, is the onco-anesthesia and critical care, nursing team, and trained technicians and perfusionists play an important role. Coming to the surgeons, the various types of surgeons are embarking into this field, which includes surgical oncologists, GI surgeons, and gynae oncologists. It is a common platform on which I think all specialties, it is a great unifier. Now we are seeing all this cross-specialty collaboration coming into play in the field of peritoneal surface malignancies. The surgeons who are well-versed with pan-abdominal surgeries, surgeons who are experienced in complex oncology resections and resurgeries, they do score well when it comes to PSM programs. And training, knowledge, and skills in management of PSM is extremely important. So how surgery for peritoneal surface malignancies is conceptually different from other surgeries. The surgical mindset is slightly different. You need to retune your mind when you start your PSM programs, because traditionally surgeons are familiar with solid organ or hollow viscous surgeries. Peritoneal surface surgeons should be familiar with the surgery on fluids, jellies, layers of peritoneum. These are different kind of organs, never have been dealt before with surgery. Traditional surgery is mostly uniform two-dimensional limited field surgery, whereas the peritoneal surface malignancy surgery is a large field surgery. You need a big picture with a wide peripheral vision. You are dealing with the entire abdomen. And certain surgical personality traits are also important. This surgical personality, the qualities of a surgeon, because these surgeries are long haul surgeries, physically and mentally taxing. You should not have any distractions, lots of patients, decision making abilities, operable versus inoperable, and you should be a good team manager. This is how, when you start a CRS and HIPEC in the morning, this is how on the left it looks like. It looks very a steep climb, difficult climb, tough climb. When you start a patient of around 25 PCI, but at the end of the day, it's very, very rewarding. If you see on the right, if you achieve a CRS, this is how you feel. Safety protocols, we routinely implement these in our setup. These are integral part of PSF program. Risk of chemoaerosols, surgical plume, inhalations. So personal protective equipment during HIPEC is extremely important because we need to use filtration masks, goggles, face shields, double gloving, gowns. This is, I think, a general sort of a protocol. That's what I mean to say, for because there may be some youngsters and students who want to venture into peritoneal surface malignancies. It is not just your training or a case, but you need to look into all dimensions for the program, the comprehensive program. We should be able to handle chemotherapy during HIPEC, including spill management, how to handle chemotherapy drugs in the operation theater, prevent leaks, absorbent towels, handling of biological hazardous material. We should have SOPs. These are the special gloves and the personal protective equipments we use for HIPEC. Various types of HIPEC machines are available. I will not go into details. Suction machines, smoke evacuators are extremely important. Now they are coming because these things have helped in adapting to COVID surgery, because all these personal protective equipments using advanced smoke evacuators during HIPEC has helped us adapting to COVID surgery in the recent pandemic. So these are special high-end filters, Buffalo filters, which we use during surgery. Knowledge regarding HIPEC protocols, chemotherapy drugs, and hyperthermia. What drugs to use, what dosage, what are the side effects. The surgeon should be familiar, and what temperature and what is the duration. We should have set protocols. Patient selection is extremely important, especially when you are in the beginning of the PSM program. Try to pick up low risk, low PCI patients when you are going through the learning phase. Avoid high PCI recurrent cases with previous surgeries. Avoid low patients with low performance status. Patients with significant comorbidities. Try to avoid them when you are in the beginning of your PSM career, because major initial setbacks can affect your PSM programs. If you have a good mortality, high mortality in the first 10 cases, it can cause a setback to your program. Learning curve is extremely important because of the complexity of the entire process. The learning curves can be a learning curve of the surgeon, learning curve of the team, learning curve of the institution. Okay, the learning curve, on an average, it is reported that it takes 120 to 140 cases to at least you reach a proficiency state in CRS and HIPEC. The Dutch experience has shown we go through two phases. One is a pioneering phase, during which you set up the protocols, SOPs, to learn in the first 50 to 70 or 100 cases. Then the implementation phase comes when you do it as a routine practice. How to shorten the learning curve? There are various methods, and there are a lot of factors which can affect the learning curve. Expertise and skills of a surgeon. When you start your PSM program, what is your baseline? That also affects. The surgeons who are highly experienced in para-abdominal surgeries in the field of surgical oncology, who are doing complex oncosurgeries, who are doing resurgeries, who are familiar with MDT, they can easily adapt to PSM programs. So a good homework and key is the key to success. And it has also been shown mentoring by a good center or a good team will help in shortening the learning curve, because a wise man always learns from others' mistakes. So you should not use the excuse of learning curve to justify high morbidity and mortality. The initial morbidity mortality that has been described in the 80s is currently not acceptable. You cannot say that I'm going through a learning curve so that my morbidity and mortality are high, because most of the things are clear now. Protocols are well defined. There are training centers, so you should start only when you are ready for PSA. So this is one of our recent publications in Pleura and Peritoneum on behalf of Indian Society of Peritoneal Surface Malignancies. We did a survey regarding the knowledge attitudes of the clinicians regarding HIPEC and CRS in India. Coming to our own experience in the Department of Surgical Oncology at AIIMS, we have around 25 years experience in treating complex cancers, including ovarian, colorectal, gastric, and other tumors like pseudomyxomas. The surgical team in our setup is experienced in redo surgeries, radical resections, multivisual resections, debulking. And we have a dedicated onco anesthesia and ICU team. The challenge is at AIIMS is a high volume. Resource constraints are not a big constraints, but we have a lot of pressure on the resources and timely delivery of quality treatment. That is the biggest challenge we face. So our program started, we started as with some interest in peritoneal surface malignancies way far back in 2010. And the preparations I started was in 2011. And we actively followed the scientific developments in the field of CRS HIPEC since then. The first case we did CRS HIPEC was in June 2012 in a 40-year-old female patient with peritoneal mesothelioma who was diagnosed as tuberculosis, and subsequently she was referred to our center with a diagnosis of mesothelioma. So this is the first case we did. At that time, machines were not available. So we did some improvisation and did a total peritoneectomy in this patient using cisplatin. We did HIPEC, perfusate dextrose, 60 minutes duration at that time. And she lived for 9 years after that, 8 years. So this is the first CRS HIPEC which was done at AIIMS in 2012. You can see the disease here. It's in mesothelioma. And we did a complete peritoneectomy, total peritoneectomy. And this is some improvisation for HIPEC we did. We used anesthesia temperature monitors to monitor the temperature, intra-abdominal temperature. Then we acquired a machine in 2014, that is Sunchip Gamida from France. And we have a second machine I purchased in 2019, that is a RAND machine. This mostly we use for isolated limb perfusion, whereas we use Sunchip for HIPECs. We have a systematic protocol-based approach. Patient selection criteria is very strict. We have a prehabilitation protocol. Perioperative care pathways are well defined. Standard surgical procedures are followed. We follow HIPEC protocols and OT safety protocols, and we maintain a prospective database in our department. This is our HIPEC protocol at our center, and we use Omnitrax retractor. We also have a Thompson retractor for creating the Coliseum sort of setup, and these are total peritoneectomies, extraperitoneal approach for mesothelioma, and block resections, multivessel resections are liberally done if you feel a good optimal set reduction can be achieved in our patients. This is one of few cases of upper abdominal peritoneectomies, diaphragmatic stripping. And coming to our own data, between 2012 and 19, we have screened around 285 patients for CRS HIPEC. These are screened patients, and we denied CRS HIPEC because of patient factors or tumor factors in 34 patients. And exploratory laparotomy and closure was done in 18. CRS only was done in 13, and a complete CRS and HIPEC we could perform in 220 patients till now. That is our AIIMS experience in our department. Coming to the clinical data, if you see, the most common indication in our setup is ovarian cancer, almost 56%, followed by pseudomyxoma, colorectal cancers, pseudomyxoma of appendiceal origin 18%, colorectal 13%. Then we have a whole range of other indications, including mesothelioma and rare tumors like stromal sarcoma, granulosa cell sarcoma. And these are our volumes. We started, if you see, between 2012 and 15, we did around 21. Then 16, we could stabilize. 17, we streamlined the protocols. And 18 and 19, you can see this is a steep rise. And of course, in 2020, we are stuck with COVID. A lot of HIPECs got postponed or cancelled because of the COVID in this year. This is the patient profile at AIIMS for CRS HIPEC. Predominantly female, you see 84%. Performance status, comorbidities, almost 65% did not have comorbidities, 35% had comorbidities, mostly in the form of diabetes or hypertension. The mean operative time, if you see here, for the PCI, the mean operative time is around 370 minutes. And for PCI, if you look, our overall PCI is around 10. Range is around starting from 1 to 25, 26 for the highest PCIs we operated. Total peritectomy was performed in 52% and disease specific in 47%. Types of CRS, our optimal site reduction could be achieved in 94% of patients and suboptimal in 5.8%. The most common drugs we use is cisplatin followed by mitomycin. Average ICU stays around 1.3 days, post-operative hospital stays around 8 days. We had our own share of various morbidities starting from DVT, subacute intestinal obstruction, burst abdomen sepsis in almost 28% of patients. This is the learning curve. What we did analysis of what was our learning curve. We divided our patients into two groups. Group 1, the first 73 patients, and Group 2, 82 patients. And we looked at both groups were comparable as far as age, sex, and diagnosis is concerned, except that the appendix and pseudomyxomas were slightly higher in the Group 2. Comorbidities were comparable. PCIs, we started taking higher PCI in the later part of the study, and optimal site reduction rates have also gone up from 89 to 95% in second phase. And Group 1, Group 2, if you see the comparison, this blood transfusion rates is not much of a difference. Duration of surgery has gone down. In the last 80 patients, it's approximately 6 hours, which used to be 7.5 to 8 hours in the first 70 patients. ICU stay has gone up. On an average, now our ICU stay is only 1 day, 1.3 days. And total hospital stay, it's like any other major surgery now, like a Whipple's or a hepatectomy or esophagectomy. The average stay is around 8 days. Morbidity has come down. It used to be 34% in the first 73 cases, coming down to 23% in last 81 patients. The mortality, we had fortunately a total of 3 in 155 patients. This analysis is 155. And if you see both the groups, the multivisual resection rates have gone up in the second group. We have become more aggressive now. The yellow bars are multivisual resections, large bowel, small intestine, liver resections have gone up. And the morbidity has gone down. You can see most of the morbidities except sepsis. The rest of the morbidity has gone down in the later 80 cases of our CRS HIPEC. Currently, these are some complex cost calculations. We are able to do a CRS HIPEC at AIIMS because it's heavily subsidized for 1.5 lakhs to 1.8 lakhs for most of the patients. They have to buy the disposable HIPEC kits. The key to success, if you see our program, we did around 220 CRS HIPEC. It's a systematic protocol-based approach, good mentoring. We have a good team here. Patient selection, we follow strict criteria. And rehabilitation, perioperative care, standardized surgical procedures, OT safety protocol, HIPEC protocol. So these are very, very important. It is not like a single surgeon starting a CRS HIPEC. You can do maybe 1 or 2 cases, but if you want to sustain a good, high-quality program, all these are essential for a successful PSM program. And we have created a prospective database in our department. All our HIPEC CRS patients are entered into this database regular as a part of a routine sort of thing. This is our team. Myself and Dr. Ray are the leading surgeons in the CRS HIPEC spectrum. And we have a whole lot of faculty and resident. Dr. Ray has a primary interest in ovarian cancers, so he is one of our active senior members. And onco anesthesia team, Dr. Sushma, Dr. Seema, and all the residents, medical oncology, radiodiagnosis, pathology, and nursing staff and technicians. So, in a nutshell, it is a team job. This would not have been possible without contribution of these members of the team. So we also did a cadaver course in CRS and HIPEC 2 years back with a galaxy of international faculty, and we could do a successful course. Almost 100 delegates participated in the cadaver course in that time. We are planning to do another once COVID is over. This is our team, which are actually working actively in CRS HIPEC, and this is our joint sort of techniques we do with our anesthesia and nursing teams. So we need to have a good working atmosphere, because if you want everything to fall in place, I think the team job is extremely critical. So with that, I would like to just conclude my talk. Thank you.